ever wondered,
man, they don't make games like they used to anymore.
or
And this one isn't even as good as the one I was playing 10 years ago.
even,
Like, this game is far better than things we have nowadays.
it's an interesting one to think about, isn't it? Why do our gaming tastes seem to change as we age? And why don't we enjoy the same things that we did when we were younger? What is the reason for this? And what can you do to make things better and actually go back to the things that you used to enjoy? And no, it's not just you who feels like this either. But let's see if we can find an answer to this. Watching this, you may be thinking, why doesn't the latest Call of Duty feel like Modern Warfare 2? Or EAFC, whatever it is, doesn't feel like FIFA 13 or FIFA 14? Like, how come games from a decade ago felt so much better? For an example a bit more modern, how come Fortnite now feels nothing like what it did in Season 3, 4 and 5? Its heyday, its prime. Why have things got worse? I'm sure, like me, you can remember coming back home from school, after a long day of studying, if you did that, and hopping on your favourite multiplayer game. Whether it be Call of Duty, FIFA, Halo, or any host of top tier games that we used to play endlessly for hours until bed. Rinse and repeat for months, if not years. And once that next release of the franchise came out, the cycle would repeat. This definitely happened to me with Call of Duty, starting with Black Ops 1 in 2010, all the way up to Modern Warfare 2, the second. And not to mention the endless nights on Minecraft with my friends, although we do sort of have a world. But now, if I load up the latest Call of Duty, it feels so boring, and I'm off in a couple of games. And the same with Minecraft. Like, when I go onto any of my old worlds, on the 360 or Xbox One, I love them and feel great getting to see these great worlds that I created years and years ago. But I never get that feeling to play some more, add more to the world. I'd rather just start a new one. Let's bring it back, but in your head. You believe that what you want is for the new games to feel like the old ones that you remember, and that is exactly how nostalgia clouds our judgment. With a nostalgic view, the games we grew up with and cherish so dearly are way better than what we have now. But remove that mask for a minute and take an objective look. Minecraft is the prime example here. Bedrock Minecraft now is objectively better than what I grew up with, that being the Xbox 360 version or Xbox One version. But then again, they did evolve into Bedrock. But Bedrock has more blocks, more environments, more geological structures, more mobs, more ways to customize, and many, many more ways of building structures in order to create your dream world. But playing Bedrock just doesn't hit as hard or feel as good as it does to go on my older worlds. Something about them just feels better. FIFA, or EAFC now, is another great example. Gameplay is more realistic, the players are better detailed, there's more content than ever in Ultimate Team. There are so many more ways to earn coins, grind for cards and get rewards. Whereas back in my day, FIFA 14, we had divisions and tournaments for a reward of a few thousand coins. And all the other game modes were more basic back then, but the memories of that game are something special. And not to mention, I played much more of, FIFA 14 than any other FIFA since. So this shows us that the nostalgia that we feel for these older games that we grew up with can and will interfere and cloud our judgment on the games nowadays. And it can even make us not enjoy games now, as we always have in our heads that it's an inferior product and worse than what we remember. So why would you play a game that you actually think is worse? And that, to me, is the key of this. Because we are looking at a new release thinking, this doesn't feel like the game I played 10 years ago. And it stops us enjoying the game for what it is, just a newer product, a newer version. Obviously, we want games to be better, but I think there is something we need to think about. We don't actually want games to be better. We want them to feel like they did years and years ago when we were growing up with them. We want the memories to come back, and over time it stops us having a proper look at things. We always remembered the great memories, the memorable moments, the insane games, the times we carried a team to victory by a single point, but we don't remember all the times we hated the game. We're frustrated at the mechanics, the games where we destroyed our controller, or even just the regular games, ones where it was just normal, nothing extraordinary at all. So let's take Black Ops 2 for example. All of my memories of that game are concentrated, and to be honest, are probably taken from about 10 to 20 multiplayer games, or a few zombies games as well, compared to the hundreds of matches I'll have played over that year. It's like a compilation video or highlight reel. That is our memory. We remember the good stuff and disregard anything that really didn't make us feel anything novel. And for this, one good example I have is Overwatch. My only standout memory of that game is where I went something like 25-0 in a game as Tracer, and my friend that I played with was in the same game and went a similar amount. Like, it was incredible. I can't remember anything else from Overwatch. I know I played as Reaper and Tracer mainly, but I cannot think of another standout moment from all the games that I played on it. So do you see how this nostalgia can cloud our judgment? It basically compiles everything down into a highlight reel of the most memorable moments. So we either have a very positive or very negative view of the game and nothing really in the middle. But this nostalgia trip doesn't just work for the software, it also works with the hardware. We each have our favourite console generation, and for me and for a lot of people my age, it's the Xbox 360. Now, there is nothing that is objectively better in the Xbox 360 compared to the current line of Xbox consoles. And same with the controllers. But the consoles, the newer ones, are more powerful, have more storage, and the 360 has an external power brick for goodness sake. Now subjectively though, that's where we can have disagreements. The Xbox 360 may be sleeker, sexier than the Series X and Series S. And obviously the differences in the operating system and how it looks. But the modern consoles are just better. What we're remembering is actually the experiences on that console rather than the hardware itself. It would not matter what the box and controller were like so long as the experiences were the same. Now, I can say this for a certainty, the Xbox 360's exclusive library is far and away better than whatever the Xbox One or Series X, S, whatever exclusive library is. Excluding the backwards compatible games, of course, but that's basically cheating anyway. So after looking at the effects that nostalgia has on us, let's now look at the human aspect. How we've changed and caused our own downfall. Believe it or not, simply growing up and becoming an adult can have a massive impact on our tastes, likes and dislikes. Not only in gaming, but in general. As we learn and have more experiences about the world, our views, opinions, likes and dislikes can change. I'm sure that those watching this video that are old enough remember things that they absolutely hated or loved 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but feel the complete opposite nowadays. Me, for example, I used to hate Formula 1. Thought all motorsport was bad. Thought it was boring and a useless sport. But now it's probably actually my favourite sport to watch, you know. Come on, Aston, get a win, please. And no, not because of Drive to Survive. I've never watched an episode of that. I have good tastes. But these changes in our likes and dislikes will happen, and obviously the same happens in video games. The example I have for this is the switch from multiplayer focus to a more single player focus. This is because when I was getting into multiplayer games for the first time through games like Call of Duty, Black Ops and FIFA 14, along with other shooters and so on, I found it so exciting and novel, as this was the first time I had ever played a proper online game with Black Ops. This novelty, like with all things, boosts our remembrance and enjoyment of an activity or thing, as it is something new for our brains to feed on. And as we get older, playing the games in the same franchise and same genres, with very minor upgrades to the experience, that novelty and newness that our brains crave is gone. It's why nearly every 10 out of 10 game is something that was revolutionary, as it was something not seen before. Games like Halo Combat Evolved, Red Dead Redemption, and even Wii Sports brought something never seen before to the market, enhancing that enjoyability ever so slightly. But as I was saying, I would play these multiplayer games exclusively. And it did not matter if my friends were online or not, I was playing them. But now I can't even touch a multiplayer game on my own and only play multiplayer games with my friends. Those currently being Helldivers 2, although we've not played in a long time, and Rocket League, playing most nights of the week and winning tournaments. Not to mention that a lot of games in my past that I used to love to play and grind on, I couldn't even play them if I wanted to, due to servers not being available, or something as simple as there not being enough players to get an actual proper match on the servers. It just isn't fun, as you can go into a multiplayer game, it's only one game mode type, and it's the same players over and over and over again. Most of the time now, it's single player experiences that I pour myself into. Games like Elden Ring, Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok, and so on, as the novelty of a single player game is there for at least the first playthrough at least, with each single player experience possibly giving a much wider range of gameplay compared to the same old first person shooter or sports game or battle royale. Each single player story is crafted to work for itself, not needing to cater to the largest audience, but to be its own thing with its own unique identity. Do you remember being a child or teenager and being able to do whatever the fuck you want, for the most part, not caring about how food was made or how bills were being paid? Well, growing up, you will gain more responsibilities, needing to feed a family, paying rent or a mortgage, looking after kids, even if they're not your own, and these responsibilities are put on everyone at some point. And this alone doesn't inherently change our tastes, but what it does is take up time. Now, why is time important in shaping our tastes? 1. If we have less time, we will strive for more instant gratification in the time that we do have. 2. With less time, we will miss out on moments and opportunities in multiplayer games, as a lot of these games use FOMO tactics to get game time and money. 3. Multiplayer games, and more specifically live service games, could change massively in time gaps without playing, where single player games start exactly where you left off. All this together will make the single player games more attractive, as you never feel like you've missed out on something if you haven't played in a month. And on the flip side, increases time on terrible mobile games that promise a quick hit of dopamine within 5 minutes of hitting it up. The prime example for this would be, well, my brother, as he's not played a console game in months and months, as he's been addicted to this stupid mobile war game or whatever he's on. Our friends as well will always affect who we are and what we like. We see our peers do something and we want to try it as well. The same happens with gaming. Usually it's one friend who says,
Mate, come on, you gotta play this, come on, I've just got it, come on, play with me.
Then you get the game and you either play it forever or it dies. This is how it usually goes in friends groups, trying to find something to play together. Friends as well can shape our likes, as well as we can be pressured by others to like and do other things that we may not enjoy, or told it's bad to play a certain game, for example. And this peer pressure to almost like and be interested in quote unquote normal things will eventually shape our tastes and make us bow to others. Now let's look at the gaming industry itself and why the trends it's following may contribute to these feelings we have for games nowadays. Firstly, we need to look at the corporate side and how corporate interests can make games worse. With anything popular, corporate interests and individuals wanting to simply make money will quickly follow. Now, it's not bad to want to make money or go into gaming to make money. Like, I think a lot of people who are indie developers and are doing this on their own to try and make money because they're passionate about it are great. And it's that key word, passion. That is the real focus here. It seems like a lot of these companies, like especially EA and Ubisoft, have lost their passion for making games. Yes, there's talent, of course. They are still well put together games for the most part. But there is no heart in these blockbuster games now. Each iteration feeling less and less different than the prior release, seemingly being built to tick boxes of what a game should have. You can see this Ubisoftification through their big franchise Assassin's Creed. Each new installment feels the exact same, with the same mechanics over and over again, just in a new setting. Especially the most recent releases, they look great, play well, but there's no heart to them at all.
Okay, regular developers, it's time to plan our next Assassin's Creed game. So, you remember our games Mirage, Valhalla, Odyssey and Origins, right? Well, I have the same tick list here of the things that we did in those games, And we're gonna do them again. But this time, in feudal Japan. What an idea, I know, came up with it myself. Not to mention, main character, feudal Japan. They're gonna be diverse. Oh man, incredible. Stunning. Brave. Because that's all that matters in the world right now. But why can't you just let us developers develop and plan this game, rather than you corporate types who have never touched a line of code in your life? Because us at the top, we know what the customers want. It's right here on the tick list. Really? Well, I have an idea. What's this? Are these the new microtransactions? Oh man, we've been looking for these. It's my resignation. Resignation?
Next in the gaming industry, let's talk about padding and the rise of the live service. Now, padding is seen as a modern phenomenon, right? With more and more games featuring more pointless and useless side quests and things to do, or locations with nothing in them. Take Horizon Forbidden West example. Great game, I love it. It's full of pretty pointless points of interest though, that do nothing really and are just here to pad out the game time for those who need to level up and those who want to go for 100% game completion. Big game publishers are also taking much less risk with new games, always going back to tired old formulas that have been going on for decades, or like Call of Duty going on for over 20 years, and it's basically the same game, especially with the advent of Warzone and every game since 2019 just having a skin on over Modern Warfare 2019. The risks to try something new are not worth it anymore. These publishers find much more success in repeated formulas and cliches to make easy money, whereas the games that do take the risk and try to do something different do make money and can be critically acclaimed and monetarily successful, but it just isn't enough for a lot of these publishers who want year-on-year profits and constant growth and want all their games to basically be Fortnite. The live service plays into this as well, as nearly every AAA game now has some form of live service element, whether it be a battle pass or cut content to be turned into a season or a DLC later. Like, I wonder who I'm thinking of there twice. But it's these practices that are ruining gaming, and it's only really an issue in multiplayer games, definitely moving older gamers to more single player games. Now let's not forget the rise of the indie developers as well, as these people are the real heroes.
You are the real heroes.
The indie development scene has grown massively over the past decade, and with so many AAA game studios constantly screwing over their consumers, many people have looked to indie developers for salvation, boosting the reputation of indie developers as a whole, almost to a kind of saviour-like status, even if that isn't strictly the case, making people more likely to trust an indie developer or play a game that they've never heard of or never would have thought of buying. The next part of this subsection is to discuss that players and fans of games from the early 2000s and 2010s are now, these that were playing the classics and the best genre of gaming ever, are entering development teams and putting their own spin on things, making games with their own ideas, and like most pieces of art, taking inspiration from what they liked and grew up with as children. Now, why might this be an issue? If they're taking inspiration from what they played, the games like Halo 3, Gears of War, and the other classics, why can this actually make things worse? Well, it's complex, but taking inspiration isn't inherently bad. In fact, sometimes it can be very successful and make a beloved game. Nearly every shooter is influenced by the big boys of the genre, like older Call of Duties, Halo, Half-Life, and even going all the way back to the original Doom. So inspiration itself isn't bad and is required to help move things along. But what each of the big shooter franchises has in common is that each one of them massively innovated and had features that were so unique that it elevated them from what came before, and the other inspired games that more or less did a sidestep and don't upgrade anything. For the shooter example, Halo brought a gripping story with cutscenes and the arcade-style first-person shooter to a console platform. Call of Duty made first-person shooters more realistic and grounded, and especially with the release of Call of Duty 4, bringing shooters to a contemporary and modern setting, made it an instant hit. And for a more modern example, Titanfall, a personal favourite of mine, brought advanced movement to a big budget multiplayer shooter. And of course, the competition followed with, in my opinion, subpar versions of an advanced movement first-person shooter. The bad side of inspiration is when a game is basically just a rip-off of what's come before, not innovating or improving on the features or mechanics of the games that they're supposedly inspired upon. A great example for this would be the whole host of looter shooters that have all claimed to be the Destiny killer, sure, or the Borderlands killer, and so on. And yet both Destiny 2 and Borderlands are the two biggest and most popular looter shooters in the world, with Borderlands being a more single-player focused game with a more whimsical world, whereas Destiny is an online version with co-op for giant raids and an online competitive multiplayer. Each of them has their own thing for an audience. But with so many looter shooters coming out to supposedly become the top dog, none have, despite clear inspiration. Especially a game like Anthem that had so much going for it. An open world, flying in Iron Man suits. It had the new features that were good, but what happened was the actual gameplay was fucking shit and was similar to what you would expect in vanilla Destiny, a game that was 5 years old at that point. So even though it had the new movement and a beautiful open world, after about an hour, that novelty had worn off and the gameplay was worse than what Destiny 2 had to offer at the time, which was the Forsaken DLC, arguably the best thing ever. And if you want me to go more in depth on how Anthem could have took over the world but how it completely flopped, tell me in the comments below and subscribe for that future video. Now let's move on to how social media and content creators can change our tastes. This is on a similar note to how friends and family can get you into games. And with meteoric content creators making videos on games and everything that's popular for views, with some being solely focused on one game, you may almost feel obligated to play that game as well, slowly moving you over to games that the content creators are playing compared to what you would have alternatively played and found by yourself. Now, it's not inherently a bad thing. Like, there's many games that I never would have played if I didn't see a YouTuber playing them first. Like, prime example was Doom 2016, as for me, I saw my favourite YouTubers, usually Destiny YouTubers at the time, showing off the multiplayer, and I love the game to this day. It's one of my favourite games. Doom Eternal surpasses it though, pretty clearly. So what can we do about it? Can we actually ever fall back in love with the games that we used to play and find joy in our tastes changing? Well, both yes and no. Now, unfortunately, there's nothing really we can do about the gaming industry itself in the immediate time. They will continue to milk us through scummy tactics to pursue corporate interests rather than making a good game, just because it doesn't have microtransactions. So a lot of our favourite franchises and genres may be out of reach and not really worth it anymore. The only thing we can do is to personally not participate in any of these games that employ these tactics, and spend our time on games that actually show love and respect and heart to the actual art that is video games. Now, it may seem like an impossible mountain to climb, and, well, it is, to change these companies, but at least you can be assured that you are only spending your money and time on what's worth it. However, as our tastes change, we should be embracing them more. If we find ourselves moving to another type of genre, so long as you find value in those games and are enjoying them and playing them, then so what if you don't enjoy the games that you used to, or the same genre that you used to? Like, you've moved on to greener pastures and have found something that you now enjoy. For me, I love sitting down and on the PS5, loading up a single player game, playing for an hour and going off. And just because I don't play Call of Duty anymore, or any football games or battle royales, those memories are still in here of the prime years of those games, and they won't go away anytime soon. And the final thing that I would add is that no matter what you're playing, so long as it's providing value to you personally, and you believe it's worthwhile to spend your time and money on, then you have fun on your favourite games now. As in another 20 years' time, they will probably change again.